Welcome to Modern Mindset, the show that picks the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours. Decoding the beliefs and strategies of global experts to give you an updated mindset to make the most of modern life. Hosted by the UK's most in-demand and highest-paid hypnotherapist, Adam Cox.
This is Modern Mindset, the show that picks the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours. I'm your host, Adam Cox, and joining me today, we have a very special guest. We have a self-mastery mentor for business people, but more interestingly, I think, a facilitator for psilocybin therapy. It's Elizabeth Ramirez Duque. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I guess the obvious question is psilocybin. What is that and what makes it therapeutic?
Psilocybin is a compound that magical mushrooms have that differentiates them for the rest of mushrooms. So it's not even the compound that makes them psychedelic, but when that hormone of those mushrooms connect with the hormones within your human body, then you create a psychedelic experience that can lead you to very beautiful places and very transcendental places to discover yourself.
There was two parts of your intro, a self-mastery consultant, a mentor for business people, and then this psilocybin facilitator. Most people would put them on opposite ends of a spectrum. So when you think of a business consultant, you think of someone wearing a suit and kind of being very corporate and very kind of let's say rigid. And then if you're thinking about this kind of, let's say, psychedelics, and you're thinking of more kind of a spiritual person, do you see that kind of polarity in yourself, or would you say that you've become a fusion of kind of opposite ends of a spectrum?
It's so funny that you start with that question, because I think that is like the biggest realization I have had in my life. But that is like, before, I imagine it as a pendulum. Before, I used to be very deep in the business area. I used to be a consultant. I worked for McKinsey. I was working for different companies and having clients in Switzerland and in Colombia, working for a company in the States. And then I went all to the other side. I felt there was something else I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to create impact that was going beyond. And I went to allow all these practices and to the jungle with indigenous, learning from them, learning from the medicine. And then I was like barefoot, living in the jungle, spending time with them, thinking that I was not really like made for a city life. And now, like, in the past, 4 years, 3 years, has been the way back to the center of the pendulum, understanding, okay, what is the unique value that I can bring, taking in account that I have these two extremes. And actually, it was the medicine in a journey, in an ayahuasca journey, that I was running from one place to the other, and I was going to my circle, my work circle. I was like, I just feel I don't fit there. And then I was going to the spiritual circle. I was like, I don't fit there. I was trying to move from one place to the other. And then ayahuasca literally told me, like, you're not meant to fit any box. You're meant to be a bridge. So how can you connect these two things? That's what you are, a mix of these things that will allow people to go from one place to the other.
Hence why you're a facilitator now, because you are the bridge for other people to kind of experience the same realizations that perhaps you experience yourself. But if we go back in time a little bit, because I think a lot of people, they become educated, they have a life script which says career success is one of the key metrics of kind of happiness and kind of what you're meant to do. And people find themselves in a corporate or kind of career ladder, and that can be very difficult to leave that kind of security and all of the investment of time and energy that you've put into that pathway to then walk away from that. What was the key catalyst before you then went on your kind of, kind of journey with ayahuasca? Was it some kind of intuitive feeling that you felt even before that point in time, that you felt something wasn't right? Or was it more there was a different catalyst for you to explore other things?
It was like feeling that all my life I was very good in academics and I was getting like amazing jobs and getting so many tasks and so many things that were describing me. And I think that I reached something like an ideal point of life very young and I worked for it a lot. So I was working for consulting firms. Then I went to live in Switzerland and I had a relationship there. Being super young, I was speaking different languages. I wasn't happy with that. I was feeling like I'm helping companies to be more successful in doing something that is not aligned with who I am because I was helping companies that sell products that I know that are not good for humans. I was helping companies that I know that they were doing things that were bad for the environment. And I was like, this is not how I want to invest this creation that I have made out of myself. And just the craziest and the most difficult thing is that I felt that was not the life that I wanted, but I didn't know what was the thing that I wanted. So leaving all that and saying like I left, I was living in Switzerland back then, and I left Switzerland and stopped the relationship I had. But people is like, okay, you're leaving all that. Why? What is it that you're looking for? And I went back to Colombia. I was like, I have no idea. It just like I just know that I don't want to go further in a path that is not mine. And I think that was just a place from misalignment that I was feeling something, I was thinking something different, I was saying something different, and then doing something different. And I just felt like I wasn't honest and true to myself.
Mm. And I think a lot of people misjudge intuition and how intuition works. They think it's kind of like an epiphany of very specific, detailed, kind of schematic of exactly what you need to do. But a lot of the time, it's just a sense that something isn't right on the path that you're on, and therefore, there are clues that you might not know exactly what it is, but you know what it isn't. And therefore, step one is making a decision to remove yourself from that situation. So you've got a more clarity as to where else it could be. How was it for you to go from the journey of your own, let's say, kind of spiritual realization or whatever insight you got from ayahuasca to then feeling like I need to help other people, you know, experience whatever the realization was for you, but for them, like how did it go from an individual experience to you becoming a facilitator for other people?
Well, my first ayahuasca experience was probably 10 years ago. And since I was little in school, I remember that I was always like writing about indigenous people and like doing research about tribes and just finding cool stuff. When I was very young, I was doing a research on a tribe in Africa that connects through dreams and like they do their ceremonies and they get married in the astral plane of dreams. And I was finding that so fascinating. So every time that I would have something to do in school, I would do it about these topics. But up to this day, I don't remember how I went to that first ayahuasca ceremony because it wasn't that common back then. And I don't know how I found the place. I went by myself. I remember the first day that I got there, I was just like, oh, okay, I felt this is for me. But when I arrived, people was like, "Hey, so this is your first time?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Who are you coming with?" And I was like, "By myself." And they were looking at me like, "Huh, cool, welcome. Like, nice to meet you. Let us know if you need anything." Um, but I went to this journey. Literally, that was my first vision when I was telling you that I was seeing myself from one place to the other, and I went deeper. I started to feel just the energy from people, many realizations and many things that I thought that were important for me that ayahuasca told me like we have this meeting, we're going to talk about deeper stuff than what you think we're going to talk about. Um, and from there, I probably had 3 years without any medicine. Then I had all the journey, but still meditating, doing breath work, connecting a lot with I don't know what it was, like something that I knew was beyond what we can see and what we can hear. And after I came back from Switzerland, back to Colombia, I just had too much time free because no job, no relationship, no, most of my friends, I wasn't in contact with them because I was living away. So I had a lot of time to meditate, and through meditation, I found beautiful places within myself, incredible experiences. I started to experience just the love, a different type of love. I think that love for the first time, but mostly synchronicities. I started to be in the right place at the right moment, meeting the right people. Like, honestly, miracles, things that, like, it's just like in my mind, those things were not able to happen, that were like leading me to go and discover places with myself. And I think that was the moment when I realized, like, are those things inside of me? Can I do that? Can I see that? Can I feel that? And it's almost like an explorer mindset of, where else can I go? And then when I was getting readings, I don't know, you get, like, in the spiritual world, you have access to so many tools. So I was like, oh, give me a reading for my angels, a tarot reading. But I wasn't even paying attention to what they were saying about me. I was more like, I want to feel like you're feeling. I want to see what you're seeing. How is these people doing this? What are they experiencing? So I just became so intrigued and so passionate about finding tools that allow me to go play inside of me to places that I haven't discovered yet, that are there, but literally you have to take the cover up. And just in the most beautiful place, full of love, alignment, flowing, everything bright in all the areas of my life. But I wasn't sharing any of this stuff yet. And then I went back to another ceremony, because I'm feeling so great. I'm even doing this ceremony because I want to give thanks. And then the medicine was like, are you feeling like, I had this waterfall of love that I could see falling in me, and like expansive and infinite. And the medicine was like, are you feeling great? And I was like, yeah. Do you feel that love? And I was like, yeah. Do you think it's limited? And I was like, no, like, this is infinite. And it's like, okay, so then why you're not sharing it with others? And I found out because it was because I was afraid people was going to judge me. I was going to lose my credibility. People was going to think that I was a hippie, and all these tags that I have worked for so long, to be a consultant and to be like this, and to uh, do what I was doing with businesses. I was like, it's like letting go of the identity that I have constructed for myself. And it
Mm.
was very difficult to leave that cage. But intuition, when you know there's something you have to do, and when you're feeling so good, and when you know there's another way of living, there's just no way you don't share it.
Mm.
It's your service.
Yeah, it's almost like that Japanese concept of ikigai. Like once you find that fulfillment that comes from, a purpose that actually helps other people and aligns with what you're good at, then it's very difficult to do anything else because you're getting so much value from that. We mentioned that there's a spectrum between, let's say, the corporate side and then the kind of very kind of, let's say, more spiritual side. You could look at, let's say, you use the word medicine when you talk about ayahuasca and psilocybin, but if you put that on a let's say a spectrum of what people would consider drugs, you know, on the very far end, the opposite end, people don't talk about, let's say, recreational drugs as medicines. They don't talk about ceremonies. They don't talk about, kind of spiritual awakenings and things like that. Do you think it's fair that society kind of looks at all these kind of different ways that kind of changes our kind of mental and emotional states and kind of puts them all in this category of drugs? Do you think that's helpful?
Well, I believe that there are things that we're consuming day by day that are drugs, very dangerous drugs, and we, as they are just common or illegal, we don't consider them as that. But like, if you see at the World Health Organization, they have a map where they show what is the most dangerous drug, and which one is the lowest, the least dangerous. And then you're going to see in the top there's alcohol, and then in the base there's psilocybin mushrooms. There's no one single person that has died for mushrooms, right? And every single day you see people going and buying alcohol easy and free. And I'm actually reading a book that's called This Is Your Plant on Plan This Is Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan. And he says like isn't it interesting that the substances that make you like work harder or stay more attached to ideas of society are legal as sugar, alcohol, cigarettes, because there are experiments that they do with ants and with animals that show that they become slaves, that it's almost like a dormant for the brain. And then the ones that allow you to expand your perspective, find new ways to develop your brain, they are the ones that are criminalized, that are not legal, and the ones that we're not talking so much about. So definitely, if there's something that is in the earth, I mean, who gives who the right to say that something that is grown from the planet, that it's natural, is illegal?
Hmm. You're right. There is there's definitely an agenda, and I think it comes down to um, does it move the economy in the direction that politicians want it to, and also can it be taxed? And there's certain things that you can kind of control and regulate, and therefore tax, and there's other things that you can't. And I always found it interesting walking through the city of London when you've got these kind of skyscrapers, you've got these kind of people in, kind of banks and kind of hedge funds and all this kind of stuff, and they do look like, I mean, I'm a hypnotist, so I can see a trance state. You see them, cigarette in one hand, coffee in another. They're in a trance state. They're thinking about all the things they have to do, and then you've got all the pubs like afterwards. So they're in this kind of highly caffeinated, nicotine induced state during the daytime, and then in the evening they need the alcohol to kind of balance it. And while they're on that kind of hamster wheel, they're making a lot of money for themselves, but they're making a lot of money for the businesses that they work to. So I don't think it's surprising that that's legal and kind of almost like socially approved of. And then these kind of things that get people, in a, let's say, more of a meditative state. People aren't going to take mushrooms and then kind of work a 12-hour day. That's not going to happen. So there is, it does seem like there's a bit of an agenda, and obviously politicians kind of steer this. Do you think that's where a lot of the stigma comes from those kind of more, let's say, kind of substances that kind of are on the other end of the spectrum that might give you those kind of insights and kind of more of a kind of a journey experience? Do you think that perhaps is why there is a lot of maybe myths, misconceptions, or stigma attached to them?
Well, mushrooms definitely show you there's another way of doing things. And a system that is very rigid doesn't want, like it just doesn't work for a system that's very rigid and that has been working in this way for many years, that people see there's another option, and an option that creates a lot of impact and that can develop things in different ways. The biggest, I would say, like danger in all this is that if we're not having these conversations, people is going to go and find information in the wrong places. And again, these medicines and these plants are very powerful. And when you understand how to use them in the right way, that's when we talk about ceremony. There's recreational and there's ceremonial or therapeutic ways, which doesn't mean like recreational is such an important, beautiful word. Like you're recreating who you are, you're recreating yourself, but we're taking it just like as these ways of getting loose and almost like evade or run away from reality or from facing yourself. But when you go in a ceremonial or a therapeutic way, well, that's the difference between you dating a woman and you in your wedding day. The wedding day is a ceremony because you get ready for it, because you have a purpose, you made a proposal, so you have an intention to it, and mostly commitment, because you know that the ceremony when you're getting married is not about the wedding. It's about, wow, my intention is to spend the rest of my life with you. My intention is to commit to something. We're celebrating a commitment. And that's again what it's different when you are in a ceremony or when you are in a guided therapeutic session, that you have an intention, that you're getting ready for it, and that you're committing to that intention and to work with it. through the rest of your life to actually allow yourself to become um, a transcendental version of the person who's entering the ceremony.
Mm. In the States, obviously, there's been a massive turnaround in terms of, let's say, the legalization of cannabis and kind of, also a form of a psychoactive. And obviously it's making a lot of money, in terms of tax and kind of control and that kind of stuff. Are you worried that, as these countries become more open-minded to these kind of drugs, these substances, these medicines, then actually, because they can tax them, because they can regulate them, they can control them, they become more widely available, but equally they lose the connection with the ceremonial, and the kind of the heritage attached to how people, and how certainly maybe you experience ayahuasca, is going to be very different if someone could just buy it in a chemist. It's going to be very different. Is that a concern of yours that has kind of, as a facilitator, kind of do it in a therapeutic environment, if in the future people could just buy it, in a supermarket?
I feel that everything in the world are just keys to open places within yourself. Whether it is meditation, breath work, medicines, a person, a place, it's just you experiencing yourself through these um, experiences. It's like redundant, but I feel if there's a way that somebody connects with it and really allows the power of the plants to be integrated in them, you really get to feel the power and the importance of the. I actually love that we have this opportunity to be talking about this and that we're not being taken in the middle of the plaza with fire as a witch and a magician or something, right? That you are able to do the work that you do with people and you can do it now in a very open way. Definitely, the medicine comes in the way that it comes because it has a reason, and we need to take in count that there are tribes and there are ancient people. There, our ancestors have been working with these plants for centuries, and there's some beautiful wisdom in the connection that they have with them. So the work is to take this information, make it understandable, to demystify it in a way that we can understand how can we make it practical, how can we create a better and greater future, taking into account those teachings that they give us, but that it is available for us now. So yeah, like definitely once you put the things in a lab or you try to commercialize them, there's that sacredness that could be lost. But I'm very optimistic, and I feel that every single person that has these connections with something transcendental just is like opening a door to understand and realize for the first time that there's something else, that there's something beyond. Because anyway, you can learn as much and you can read as much as you want from it, but until you don't have an experience, you're not really going to know what it is.
Mm. And as a facilitator, I imagine the reason why a facilitator is useful is because there's different ways of going about things that's going to change the experience. And I imagine that one of the biggest fears that people have about, let's say, a psychedelic, a psychoactive substance is this idea of a bad trip. How common is that? Is that kind of scaremongering, the kind of people put out there so that they don't want people kind of exploring these substances? Like how true is that kind of fear of a bad trip?
Well, when you're entering a ceremony or a therapy, there are three things that are very important, and it's intention, set, and setting. So the intention is going to be your anchor. Why are you there? You have a purpose. And every single time while you're in the journey, you're coming back to your purpose. You're coming back to it because it's literally the guidance that you're giving to the medicine. And it's like you always get an answer. You don't know how, you don't know the way that it is going to show you, but you always get an answer. Even if you don't have any visions, even if you don't experience something, you always get an answer, probably in the place and in the ceremony space or through a person. Second, there is set, which is the way that you prepare, because the medicine works first in your physical body, then mental body, and then spiritual body. So we have a specific diet and a way to prepare your physical body to receive it and to be much more clean and centering your energy so that you can work deeper. Then the third one is the setting, which is this space where you are with, that you feel it's safest you can feel to go as deep as you need and to allow yourself to feel vulnerable, that you're in a place where you're held to go through these things that you need to go through. When we are, this is the difference, and like you had, like we actually connected through Diego, who was in one of the ceremonies, and before he had a very bad trip when he did mushrooms. I don't know, when he was younger at a party or something with friends. And then when I met him, it was like, that's something like up to this day, I never thought I would do that again. And then he just felt the call. But in ceremony, I always said there are no bad trips because you don't have hallucinations, you have visions. So you can even see, I don't know, a tiger that wants to eat you and it's behind you and it's, but you know the tiger is your high school teacher that said to you this and this and that and has been running behind you all your life. It's not just a tiger, you can understand what's the meaning of it. And then you work through these things to go beyond them, right? And to align with your purpose. It's like that's the fear of most people, but they don't want to see things because they could be scary and ugly. And I always say it's already these dark spaces in your house that you close the door, but they're smelling bad. You can't hang in those spaces, so you better open the door so that you can clean them. There's a story that talks about this thing of a rose that gets in your finger, and then you don't want to take it out because it can be painful, so you get a glove, and then your um, clothes don't fit anymore because you have this globe. So you have to put yourself an armor, and then you can't walk in your house because you have this armor. So you have to move to another house. And people is like, oh no, I don't talk about that. I don't like to go to that space because it's painful. But your entire life is being ruled by that one thing. That yes, it's going to be painful to look at it and to take it out, but then you can have a normal life and keep hugging people and
Mhm.
keep being in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a great metaphor because in a lot of cases, people have got complex coping strategies just because there is a lack of desire or courage to deal with the issue, because the issue is painful, it is unpleasant. But better to, you know, get the thorn out of the finger rather than live a whole life with that. In terms of, you know, you as a facilitator, it seems like you've observed breakthroughs, epiphanies, you know, kind of the impact of this kind of, physical, emotional, spiritual kind of experience. What are the significant intentions that people normally set? Is it career based? Is it relationship based? Is it kind of purpose and meaning based? Have you seen any trends as to what people generally set the intentions to? And are you often surprised at the difference between someone's intention and then what they leave, let's say, a kind of an experience, a ceremony, with, if that makes sense?
Definitely. Well, the way that the medicine works, specifically for psilocybin, is that in your brain, it's going to allow you to create new connections. So it's synapses, neurogenesis, and then expands your neuroplasticity. So that allows you to connect places in your brain that you have never connected before and have perspective of things that you have never had before, and to discover things in different ways that you have never experienced before, and your brain. Um, I see that when people go in a journey, in a spiritual journey and a spiritual awakening, normally we start with self healing and self discovery. You want to know who you are. You're exploring the self. Most of people make intentions about them, about discovering their purpose, about their love life and career, and to heal family, have a more abundant mindset, and go beyond these limiting beliefs. So that's the first stage for me, self-discovery. Then there's a second one that is self-management, which is much more about the integrations of the teaching. And it's like, okay, I discovered all these things about myself, but how are they actually doing something for me in order for me to have a better life, to be a better human? Am I actually implementing these things? Because I can know, oh, I'm this way because I have this wound. This happened to me, so I had this trauma and I'm this way. But okay, you're getting this information, and how are your decisions changing for you to have a different reality? So that's self management. And then there's third one, which is, I think that the place where I love to work the most, is people that have already been in a self development path, that are awakened spiritually, that know there's something beyond, and now there's a call for them to serve. So you become a greater version of yourself in order to give your own authentic, unique medicine to the world. And this is the people that intend to create legacy, that intend to create something, whether in business or in life, that goes beyond their own life, that transcends their existence. And it's beautiful because with the medicine, just as the mycelium that grows underneath the earth, we can feel how we're all connected. And that when you serve yourself, you're serving others as well. So I would say that that's like the path that I have been seeing and discovering.
Mm. And obviously your first, kind of experience was with ayahuasca, and then it seems like you're more of a facilitator through, the psilocybin, through the mushrooms. What did you notice as the biggest difference between your kind of experiences?
Well, for the tribes in South and Central America, and just in general, medicines have an spirit. So the spirit of ayahuasca is a grandma, and then the spirit of mushrooms is the saint kids, los niños santos, like, or the kids from the stars. The medicine from ayahuasca is a medicine that comes with purge, a lot of purge, like vomiting or the diarrhea. And as it is a root, it's taking out of you like all these things. It's not that you are actually, we don't even said vomit, we said the relief. We said, ah, this person is in relief, because you literally feel it is a relief when you're living these things. But it's like a grandma, but as loving and as strong as a grandma is. Um, and then the mushrooms, they are the kids from the stars. They are about creativity, about different perspectives, about connection. Literally underneath the earth, the tree, the fruit, the flower, it's all connected through mycelium. And when we get in this state, we also enter this network, and we feel the connection that's between everything. They give you a different perspective. They are sometimes playful. They have their own personalities within the different types of mushrooms as well. There's, for example, golden teachers. They are going to activate like a voice within yourself, very wise, beautiful voice that is almost like an elder talking to you from within. But they are not as visuals. There are others like albinos. They are much more visual. And just like that, there are some that you feel more in the body. There are some that going to take you through different senses of the body, but mainly um, mushrooms work in the connectivity of the brain, and they activate your serotonin receptors, so that you can be much more aware of these things that bring you to a state of joy and like nourishment and fulfillment. And it is not like the other drugs and substances that they give you the shot of serotonin, so the next morning you have like a hangover.
Mhm.
With mushrooms, they actually activate your own receptors, so you're more aware of the things that you can captivate, and then you have a deeper and longer state of wellness.
Mm. We've seen a lot in the medical journals, over the last few years, of more studies on microdosing and, some of the health benefits of psilocybin in terms of depression, anxiety, other kind of things. I imagine that when you facilitate a ceremony, we're not talking microdoses because it would be too small for someone to notice something. What are the different levels of, I don't know how you would measure doses, but what are the different doses and what can people expect between a ceremonial dose and what would be considered a microdose?
Okay, so microdose is between zero point 0.2 and zero point 0.3 milligrams of mushrooms, but the goal of microdosing is that you don't feel it through your day. So it's something that you can ingest in the morning, and then it's going to start working and creating these paths and like working in your brain in very subtle ways that you're going to notice with the time, but it's not going to interrupt your day-to-day routine. And then when you're going in a ceremonial space or a macro dose, it can be from 2.5 till 6 grams, with 6 being a very large dose. Um, and the thing with mushrooms is that they work in a very specific network in your brain that's called the default mood network. And that's the network that tells you who you are. That's where we have like archivated, or that where we keep our identity. That tells you Adam is a man that does this, that this has hardworking, or that's healthy, that is a good father, that is a good person. And based on what you think you are, you're taking decisions through the day. So mushrooms go to that place and make that neural path much slower so that you can observe this idea that you have about yourself, and you can realign that and reorganize it in terms of, is this really serving me? Are all these beliefs that I have about myself really serving me? There's an analogy that they use, and they said, if you smoke a cigarette in the morning, imagine there's a mountain with snow, and you have like a trineo, like a little car coming down that hill every single morning. When you take a cigarette, it goes down one time. Next morning you take another one, it goes down another time, and until the road is so deep because of the repetitive pattern that the car can move anyway. So when we're talking about microdose, we talk about it's often referred to it as a new storm of snow that is falling in top of the mountain. So now you have the opportunity to take different directions
I
because
see.
they're much more clear.
Yeah, and I guess that's the key thing because with a lot of substances, because there's an emotional payoff, it kind of reinforces those neural pathways so that, the analogy I use rather than, kind of a snow path would be almost like a river. The river isn't going to flow any other way than the dominant river, but sometimes if there's an earthquake or something, well, then it can find a new path to kind of find through. And it seems like the psilocybin creates opportunities for new neural pathways, that neuroplasticity that you're talking about, to make new evaluations, make new, kind of possibilities of behavior choices and that kind of stuff. What would your biggest fear be when it comes to, let's say, because the trend, I think, for all of these kind of psychedelic, psychoactive substances is that being more discussed, more open, there's going to be more kind of consumption experience, that kind of stuff. You said yourself that when you tried ayahuasca the first time, it wasn't widely experienced. And now I know a lot of people that have kind of been to these ayahuasca ceremonies. Do you have any fears or worries about a world in which people are, let's say, experiencing more of this kind of stuff? Or do you think it's a good thing? It's just going to create more awareness, more understanding?
I definitely feel that there's going to be much more awareness, because as a whole, just we can feel that the energy of the planet right now is changing, and we're looking within. The main thing is that I personally, because I have experience more than a fear, it's an invitation, because it's not about judging the way that other people is using it, but from what I have experienced myself and from what I have seen, these are honestly sacred, hyper powerful tools that can help you transcend your life if you really use them in the right way. The medicine commits to you, in the same way you commit to it. And more than being worried about it, I focus in like that we talk and expand more this information so that people can go and connect with the sacredness of these processes, because it I have seen people transforming their lives incredibly with these substances. And I just, more than being worried, I will be sad that people cannot experience the full potential of these plants and the power that they have when you really allow them to speak to you. Because they are teachers, great teachers. And here's the other thing: you go to a teacher or you go to a medicine when you have a pain, when you have something you want to heal, when you have something that you want to learn. And then the ceremony is they giving you, they teaching you what they need to teach you. But then you go to life, and that is the exam. That's the test that you need to pass. And then once you pass the test, you can go back to the teacher and say like, hey, I would like to learn a little bit more. But there's a lot of people going back and back and back and back to the teacher without actually learning and integrating the lessons that they learned in the first ceremony or in the first space where they took the medicine, which makes integration and like life ceremony, living in purpose. That's a lot of what I'm learning here in Bali. Every single thing can be a ceremony if you start having the intention to live. If you start to have a committed relationship with life. If I am this person with the unique abilities, knowledge, experiences I have, what is the most delicious, expansive, amazing life that I can experience? And committing to live it. That makes a ceremony of life.
Mm. And I can tell from you, you have real passion, knowledge, understanding, but also a high level of integrity about the, connection to intention and the ceremonial and the therapeutic kind of benefit of this. But also your background is in business. And therefore, that as awareness increases, as demand increases, there's going to be people that don't care about ceremonies, don't care about intentions. They're just going to be effectively drug dealers of this, psilocybin, and they'll, package it in a way to serve the biggest people to monetize that. Do you see that if you were to offer the substance and take out the setting, the intention, the ceremonial, the facilitator's own, kind of objective to create, something empowering as an experience, if you take all that out and you just kind of give people the drugs? You mentioned like Diego's first experience was a bad trip, possibly because the setting wasn't so good, the environment wasn't a clear intention. Is that a potential that actually 10 years from now, there's a lot more people that have experienced psilocybin, but perhaps not in the way that maybe the original tribes intended people to experience it?
Yeah, well, um, what happens with psilocybin specifically is it is not addictive. So
Mm.
we're not going to have people that's going to be addicted to mushrooms, first of all. Second, I feel that even if somebody takes it to go and watch a sunset, they're going to see a beautiful sunset and experience beautiful things within themselves. So they are going to be connected with something greater. And I think that's beautiful. But what could be very dangerous is that, as I shared with you, mushrooms do in your brain exactly the opposite that alcohol does. Alcohol starts cutting your neuronal connections, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why people loses their mind or stop remembering things. And the mushrooms, they try to connect these neurons in synapses. So if you're having mushrooms and you are having alcohol, you're going to have a crazy result. You're going to crash. And there's when we can start seeing the danger. Oh, and beyond that, when you are taking these medicines energetically, you're so open. You open literally a portal. You enter something that I can't explain with the mind, because it's something that you just feel it and you are in a place that's beyond your human experience, beyond your body. And when you are so open, you also allow many things in. So if you're in an environment where there's other drugs and there's violence, or there's people that haven't been working as much on their energy, respecting every single process and every single path, you're also going to receive that. So I do believe there you can have very bad trips, very bad trips because you are catching on the energy of other people. And if it's not with an intention, I mean, there's not much that people's gonna get out of it.
Mm. I guess metaphorically, like if you have a house in a very safe neighborhood and you get on well with your community and you know people around you, no problem on opening your doors and windows. But if you're in a dangerous neighborhood and you don't really trust, the motives of the people around you, if you open all the doors and unlock everything, then of course it's going to be a very different experience. So it's kind of an element of preparation and diligence is probably useful. As you're talking about connections, I'm getting kind of flashbacks of the movie Avatar, where kind of like everything's connected, like the trees, the animals, and all this kind of stuff. In many ways, like increasing connections, I imagine there must be a point of diminishing returns. Like if you have all of these like neural pathways that are kind of like connecting in all different areas, is there a point where, taking more psilocybin doesn't really do any more because you've already created the kind of connections necessary? Does it reach diminishing returns, or is it infinite? You can't stop creating new connections.
It's infinite. It's infinite. I have been seeing grandmas, 80 years old, taking information, like technical information, talking about technology, talking about like literally writing code and saying like, if we will do this and this and this way and this other way, we could create free energy for everyone. And it's like crazy things. I have myself been sitting with plants, like a palm. There's a palm in a place where I normally do ceremonies. That palm teaches me about how to nourish myself, and she shows me how she's nourishing and how are the systems. And then it showed me like, okay, just like we in nature, we all have our own role. And just like in the body, the soul, the heart knows what's the function of the heart. The lungs know what's the function of the lungs. And the heart's never going to say like, oh, I'm not pumping today because I'm very mad with the lungs. No, they're a team. Each of them own its power, and they're all keeping the body together. So, how are we doing that as a society? And those are some of the teachings that the medicine gives you, that it's infinite. And that's why I think that it would be so powerful to have like leaders, top leaders from different industries with different backgrounds sitting together and having a common purpose. How can we serve better? How can we transform the world in better ways? How can we literally help transcend the way that we have lived up to now? What's the other way? Because the spiritually you get to experience also that there are other beings around you. There's the spirit of the earth, the spirit of the fire, other beings, angelical beings. People connect with all types of people that have passed already. People connect with other realms of reality, and you can have like a round table with all of them to co-create what we are developing here on Earth.
Mm. I think it's a powerful vision, but typically, if you think of political leaders, they figured out over time that actually by breaking connections increases their ability to have power and influence. So it does seem challenging to get those people that have spent a whole lifetime figuring out that they get power and control by being divisive and breaking connections to enter a world where they're creating connections. But I think if you could get them around that table, that would be a fascinating conversation. If someone's listening to this right now and maybe they're curious to learn more about you or psilocybin or the ceremonies that you facilitate, where's the best place they can go for more information?
You can go to Instagram at elizabethramirez.co, and you can find all the information there.
Fantastic. Elizabeth, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you. I love sharing about this. I'm so excited to see what's happening now, that we're getting more informed and that we can see there are other ways, that we don't have to choose between power and abundance and happiness. We can actually create a life that's very aligned and that can integrate it all.
Fantastic. And to your home, thanks for joining me on Modern Mindset. See you again soon for more.
Thank you for listening to Modern Mindset with Adam Cox. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review. Modern Mindset, picking the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours.
We did it.